Hi, everyone. Welcome to AniMental, your new favorite podcast that discusses anime and mental health. I'm your host, Lanie, and it's nice to meet y'all. I wanted this first episode to be an introduction to why this podcast exists, my background in mental health, and what you can expect in future episodes. That was probably the most scripted part of this entire first episode. I have tried to sit down and write various scripts. I have tried to write out my thoughts, but I think it's just better if I just go from the dome, honestly. Um, so why AniMental? Why does it exist? What is the purpose of it? And I think in order to answer that question, I kind of have to go back and talk about what anime means for me as a viewer. Everybody, when you're growing up, you have your own thing, right? For some people, it was Harry Potter. For some people, it was Star Wars, Star Trek, horror films, Twilight, and more, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, that media has always been anime. Um, Being an only child, I grew up on shows like Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Tenchi Muyo, obviously Dragon Ball Z. So pretty much I was a Toonami Adult Swim kiddo. So like Cowboy Bebop and Inuyasha, all of that. And I've always naturally gravitated towards shows like that or just animation in general, even in adulthood. Now that I am in my 30s, it is still something that has carried over from that. And I think a misconception with anime or just animation in general is it's just for kids. But even in recent years, when we've seen like the rise and the popularity of shows like Attack on Titan, it's which is clearly not for children. I think it's safe to say that we need to kind of break those stereotypes, kind of break that ground, so that way there's not an eye roll when somebody's like, "Oh, I watch anime." And it's not the, "Oh my god, like what is that? Oh my god, what a nerd." I think we need to talk about it more. And you see the success of like the Marvel series and when it's done for superhero movies and DC and things like that. So I feel like this podcast can be a great gateway for people to get associated with the genre. And yeah, I just got really motivated to do it. I have a lot of these conversations offline with friends in terms of talking about like our favorite series and characters. Pretty much no different than people who are super fans of whatever Grey's Anatomy, Game of Thrones, whatever it is, and talking about characters and their motivations and things like that. But I think what's gonna make AniMental separate from that is that I'm bringing in a lot of my professional expertise into it and just kind of giving more context and kind of talking through character motivations and things that they do. Um, Outside of, if you are not familiar with me, hi. I feel like we should have started there, but um, I am a content creator. I stream 3 to 4 times a week on Twitch. I When I can, I do upload content on TikTok and YouTube as well, all under my handle Lanie Love. But my full-time job from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, is I am a licensed professional counselor here in Illinois, and I work with individuals who have a dual diagnosis in my particular program. So it's both an intellectual and a developmental disability of some sort. So sometimes that's a combination of somebody who's autistic who has depression as well. So it's usually there's something else going on. So like schizophrenia and anxiety, like there's something else going on there, in addition to another diagnosis. And I often find myself, and I think a common misconception when it comes to counselors is like, "Oh, you're trying to diagnose me, aren't you?" I'm really not. I'm really not focused on you at all. I'm just trying to just vibe and do what I have to do. But I do find that when I watch certain anime series, I am doing that. When I'm trying to think about not so much diagnosing, but character motivations and what makes people tick, so to say. Why people do the things they do, why these characters do the things they do, their relationships with each other, their motivations, all of those things. And so you often get the kind of anime bros that do a lot of like the Black Air Force energy, which is fantastic and amazing. And, you know, shout out to creators like CJ, the champ, who I absolutely enjoy, who make videos like that. Sensei, all those amazing content creators. But I think that we can have the other end of it too. I think a more deeper conversation, a deeper discussion into mental health when it comes to these anime characters. And the reason that I think we can have that deeper conversation is because a lot of us see ourselves in those characters. Whether we like to believe it or not, even people who struggle with their own mental health or are in denial that they're going through something can recognize and view themselves in these characters in our favorite shows. For good or for bad, you know, for better or for worse, you recognize that, there's something going on here. Even in my work that I do with my clients, I have some that are anime fans, and I'll explain a concept to them, right? And they'll not understand it. They'll go, I don't get what that means. So they'll be very confused. But then I'll put it in the context of a show or a character that they are familiar with and enjoy, and then it clicks. And I think obviously you can do that with any form of media, but I think that it's really cool and interesting when we talk about anime because a lot of people probably just assume, oh, it's just a bunch of fighting. Sure, fighting might be a part of it, especially talking about like shonen. But you know, you have, you know, the seinen series and josei and shoujo where they show different aspects of someone's character. It's not just all about romance, if you will. Not only talking about how cool anime is, but also discussing the not so great parts of it too. You know, the problematic tropes, racism, xenophobia, age gaps, really problematic age gaps, fan service, especially with minors. I think that there's so much more that we can talk about, you know, tropes, like, you know, the yandere versus the tsundere, you know, what damage these tropes do when you link them to certain characters and then you take those tropes and you place them on people in your lives. So I think that talking about the impact of a lot of these stereotypes and a lot of the ways that we think is beneficial in the long run. I can't say how long I'll be doing AniMental. I think there's a lot to talk about. There's plenty of shows to talk about, plenty of characters to discuss, but I definitely want to have a purpose to what I do. I think that the moment that I lose purpose into why I'm creating this, I will struggle. And I don't want to do that. So, that being said, I'm definitely being very particular with the series that I talk about, the characters in those series that I talk about. But I also want to open it up to you all too. I also want to make sure that you all are getting the most out of it as possible. We're pretty much going to break up the episodes like this. Intro, disclaimers, any content warnings I'll make sure that I mention as well. I don't want y'all listening to something that'll bother you. So I want to give you a heads up. If there are any major spoilers, I'll even talk about, if I'm aware of where in the manga something is spoiled, I will mention that as well. Because a lot of the context for a lot of these characters that we talk about may have manga spoilers, implied or otherwise. So I want to give a general spoiler warning to anything that we talk about here on this show, that you may learn some things you didn't know. But I'll definitely do my best to be specific about what those are about. If we're talking about anime, what episodes we're talking about, so that way you kind of have a heads up, or you can watch them before you even listen. Then after we talk about those things, I want to have a segment towards the end of the podcast where you guys send in questions about things in your personal life or things that you're going through. But I do have to make a disclaimer. While I am a licensed counselor, I am not your counselor. So it is important that if you feel the urge to write something to me, I'm grateful because, I feel like you trust my opinion in some capacity, but I also want you to be aware that you may need further help outside of whatever you're asking me for. I know that people have told me horror stories about counselors that they've experienced, psychiatrists that they come across, and I promise you, when you find the right one and that fits you like a glove, and then you can have an honest conversation with, it's so beneficial to your mental health to have that person to lean on. But I'm not yours. I am not your counselor. Make that very clear. But I am willing to give insight any way that I can. Notice I said insight and not advice. Counseling is not about advice. Counseling is about insight. Counseling is you are bringing a 20,000 piece puzzle to your therapist, and you're like, I need help completing this puzzle. Now, I'm not getting on my knees and putting the puzzle together for you, but if you tell me that there are 2 puzzle pieces and you're like, why don't these fit? I give you insight. And rather than tell you which one to do or why you should do certain things, I'll say, have you tried this? The point is for me to maybe mention something, but it's not required that you do it. To my philosophy when it comes to counseling, I think that people are like, well, just tell me what's wrong with me. That's a loaded question. That's a loaded thing to say. A lot of the times, what I know about you depends on what you tell me. So if I don't know anything, I don't know it. Trust me, I would love the ability to open, my client's brain and go, what's going on there? Like, what's happening? And there have been moments where I've had clients not be honest about something that's occurred, and then I find out later that it went down differently. And rather than say, well, why didn't you tell me the truth? And blah, 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 blah. I'll just kind of say, well, how can I help? How can I help if I don't know anything? So when you're writing in, I want you to kind of keep that in mind, that if I don't have context to certain things, my insight might not be the greatest because you're not telling me everything. But don't go writing me a novel now. All right. But if you are interested in sending in things for me to look over, if you are interested in getting any kind of insight, you can go to askanimental@gmail.com. That is askanimental@gmail.com. So you can write into me via email, and I will let you know if it will be on the next episode. AniMental, we're going to talk about series. We're going to talk about tropes. We're going to talk about characters and kind of their motivations and things like that, and what to do if you have somebody like that in your life. We're not just going to talk about the Tanjiros of the world. We're going to talk about the light Yakumis too. We're going to talk about the individuals who do certain things because they want to do them and don't really care about how they impact other people too, but also don't want to deal with the consequences of their actions. So it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, but we are going to talk about the complexities of, personality traits and, disorders and things like that. But my goal is not to diagnose each time we talk about this, mainly because I feel like with diagnosis comes a stigma, and somebody might argue, well, if I know what's wrong, then I can just go for it. But sometimes we also make mistakes. I know plenty of people that have been misdiagnosed. I've worked with individuals who have been misdiagnosed, so I don't want to slap a label on someone. I think we can talk about symptoms and challenges that they face and where those stem from, but I want to be careful about just labeling something, even if they're a fictional character. This is where we actually say, nope, this is textbook this. And I will definitely give reasons as to why. I will give references as to why, if necessary. But I am so excited to start this. It feels like, is this what parents feel like when they have children? Because I feel like this is what it's like for me. And this is not scripted at all. Nothing about this is scripted except my little intro to you at the top of this episode. So I'm really just kind of going off of my own brain. That's why you hear a bunch of ums and, spaces of thinking. But I'm excited. And hopefully I can have amazing guests in the future. I know I have some people I have in mind, and I haven't reached out to them yet. But once I get the structure of how, when I'm talking about it, look in your little business emails, people. Okay, look in your business emails. If you are interested in being on the podcast, so for example, if you're a content creator or a huge anime fan and you would like to be on, then you are more than welcome to submit a business inquiry to AniMentalPod@gmail.com. That is ANIMENTAL talpod Now, I can't promise you'll be on the show, but if you give me your reason why and you lay it out, tell me what you would like to talk about, who knows, you could be up here. You could be up here talking with me. We could hash that out. But yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited for this. I have big thoughts for it, but right now we're just trying to take off the ground. So think of it as we have walked into the airport together. We have walked into the airport, we have gone through TSA, and we are boarding the flight at this point. And so next week will be our takeoff. It'll be our true debut, and I am so excited. So next week, we will be talking about Shiro Geto from Jujutsu Kaisen. Wow, that I feel like I already flubbed that. Jujutsu Kaisen. We're talking about Geto, and his motivations and kind of him as a character. Because his story is essentially done. If you know, his story is essentially done. So we can talk about him in great detail. But I'm excited because I get to sit down and rewatch shows, and I have, I collect manga, so I'm able to take, my little sticky notes and put them in places as I read, and I'm excited. This is great. This is great. And I'm also going to be watching shows I've never seen before, or on my to watch list. So I'm excited. And also, if you guys have, people you would like me to talk about, feel free to leave them in the comments, wherever you're watching this. Feel free to reach out in the DMs on Twitter. I'm calling it Twitter. It's not X. I'm calling it Twitter. Reach out on Twitter. Instagram. Let me know. Let me know what you would like to see. I am so excited. I keep saying that, but I'm so excited to do this. And let's do this, y'all. Okay, till next week. This is Lanie signing off, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.